Hello, everyone. Welcome to GMAT Club channel. I am Payal Tandon. I am one of the co-founders and CEO of e-GMAT. And today we are tackling something every GMAT test taker dreads: back-to-back reading comprehension passages. Before we dive in, if you are serious about conquering the GMAT, take 2 seconds to hit that subscribe button and the notification bell so that you don't miss any of these such valuable strategy sessions. Now, I'm going to ask you this. Have you ever been moving through the verbal section and you answer one RC passage? Right after that, you see another RC passage. Right after that, you see yet another RC passage. That is, you hit that wall of consecutive RC passages. Your concentration wavers, you time pressure builds up, panic sets in, you go from a humanities passage to an economics passage to a business passage. It becomes really difficult to actually segregate between the topics, okay, amongst the topics, right? And I see this challenge with a lot of students constantly, which is why comes the session that we're going to have today. What is it that you need to do so that such back-to-back reading comprehension passages do not phase you at all? Okay, I'm going to share these strategies with you, and you're going to see how it is that you can come out of such challenges. Okay, and if you find this approach helpful as we go through this session, do hit that like button so that more and more GMAT test takers can basically discover these techniques. Okay. All right. So I'm going to share my screen and we will go right into what do I mean by hitting what has changed actually. Is it something unique that is happening now or what is it? So let me just share my screen here. Okay. All right. There we go. All right. So what you see over here is that earlier what used to happen was you would get a balance of RC and CR and RC passages. And just give me 1 second so that I open this session on my phone as well. That way I can see your comments also. Okay, so 1 second here. All right, yes. So earlier what used to happen was a very balanced approach towards verbal. You see a set of CR questions, then you see one RC passage, then you switch your attention to CR questions, then you see another RC passage, something that we were very comfortable doing. And why was that comfortable? Because that's how we practiced, right? We were used to that. Now, more and more students have started to report that they see a chunk of CR questions up front and then they see back-to-back RC passages. And that really creates that level of anxiety, which again throws you off in the test environment. So what is it that we can do to manage these challenges? So let's understand what these challenges are. There are 3 challenges over here. The first one is that pattern disruption. We are used to alternating between CR and RC. Now, all of a sudden, you do all CR, you do a chunk of CR, and then you see RC, right? It just throws us off because anything, again, when you're doing test readiness, you are in tune to basically see those kinds of elements that you are used to seeing in the mocks, right? But now when something else comes up, it just throws you off. What is it? Am I doing something wrong? You start to second guess yourself and so on and so forth. Time management also becomes an issue. Why? Because when you have done your timing with that expectation that you're going to spend, on average 2.5 minutes on CR questions, then 6 to 8 minutes on RC passages. Now you suddenly hit that block of 20 to 25 minutes for just RC. And that's where you start to get nervous about, okay, if I don't do well in this RC, what kind of CR questions am I going to see? Is that going to dip my ability, so on and so forth, right? And then it's just the confidence level, right? Even if you are very strong in CR and RC, just the unexpected thing that you see with back-to-back RCs just creates that anxiety, right? It's like you've prepared for a very balanced workout only to be told that you have to do all your heavy lifting at once, right? It just throws you off. And that is where the solution comes about. As you recognize these challenges, what you have to know is that life is not all that bad. There is good news over here. And there are 3 things that I want you to understand, right? This pattern change will not impact your score if you are well prepared. And what do I mean by that? By being well prepared, what I mean is that your fundamental abilities, the fundamental abilities that you are going to express in the test environment, those abilities don't change all of a sudden when you see a different question order. That's something to realize. Your ability is your ability. You've cemented that. You have proven time and again that you can hit that accuracy level for hard questions, right? And that's where that metric becomes very important. So that fundamental ability, your skill level, does not change just because the question order changed. Number two, the split or the distribution of CR and RC questions in terms of number of questions does not change. So that should not really throw your timing strategy off. And lastly, the skills that you have on CR, you can apply in RC. The skills that you have in RC, you can apply in CR. So essentially, overall, if you think of verbal as a singular section and not really worry about CR versus RC, you will realize that it's the similar set of skills that you are applying. So even if you're getting a back batch of 3 to 4 RC passages altogether, so be it. That's the skill that I have learned to actually express in the test environment. Why should that bother me? That's the level of confidence that I want each one of you to have when you go into your verbal test. And if you have, when you develop that level of confidence, and I'll tell you through this session, how is it that you can develop that level of confidence? So when you develop that level of confidence, you will see that regardless of whether you're getting back-to-back RCs or not, you will actually breeze through your verbal section. Okay. Now I do see certain comments in the chat. I'm going to take all those comments towards the end of this session so that we can have a nice discussion Q&A towards the end. Okay. Now, next, let's come to this part over here, wherein I'm actually sharing with you an actual case study. This is an actual GMAT attempt in which the student Maria got 5 RCs. Okay. Then they got 5 CRs in the beginning, then 4 back-to-back RCs, then again 5 CRs. So all the RCs were sandwiched between 2 sets of CR. Okay. Now, what did the student get? V79, which is 40th percentile, so less than average, right? Now, right away, somebody could have questioned that, it's because of back-to-back RCs. It's very easy to blame something that is not typical, right? So 4 back-to-back RCs is a very atypical thing. So let's blame that, right? That's the easy thing to do. But this is where you really have to question that, was it really the clustering of RCs that prevented Maria to express her ability? Was the CR performance impacted because of RC, because of fatigue from RC? Right? Those are 2 questions that you have to answer. And remember, the fact her CR and RC abilities are 2 facts. Those facts cannot be refuted, right? And these are what her CR and RC abilities were before she actually took the test. 45% accuracy for last 20 hard questions. Again, I want you all to make a note of this. This is the metric that all of you should be tracking. Okay, your ability is a function of how well you are, what is your accuracy in the last 20 hard questions that you have attempted. Okay, and there is a very clear probabilistic determination mapping of this accuracy with your percentile ability. Again, I'm going to share that with you. Definitely take a screenshot of that or make those notes. But this is the metric that each one of you should be tracking. Now, every e-GMAT student gets this metric right in their face whenever they log into the e-GMAT platform. Last 20 hard, and you can see that on the screen. Okay, so 45% hard accuracy translates to roughly about 50th percentile. Okay, reading comprehension, 65% accuracy is what you see over there, translates to 89th percentile. Now, how does that translate into it? Are these abilities any higher than what she actually got from the test? Absolutely not. These abilities that she had demonstrated on the platform, which are factual information, these are the abilities that she actually demonstrated, expressed in the actual test environment. Okay, which means, what does that mean? Which means The fundamental abilities did not change. Whatever she had, the ability that she had before the test environment, those are the abilities that she expressed, that she demonstrated in the test environment as well, regardless of the question order. Okay. So how do you then, so what have we concluded? What we have concluded is that question order does not matter, right? But still, the main thing over here is question order doesn't matter. Then what matters? What matters is knowing your target metrics, identifying how is it that you can improve your current metrics to get to those target metrics before the test. Okay. And then you build your stamina through test readiness. Okay. These are the things that matter. These are the things that will prepare you for anything unexpected that you may see, which is why you see unexpected in these quotation marks. Okay. So number one, you should know what are the metrics that you should be hitting. Okay. And I've already told you last 20 hard. So for the last 20 hard questions that you've attempted, what has been your accuracy? You need to do that for every subsection, CR, RC, when it comes to quant, number properties, algebra, so on and so forth, right? DI, GA, TA, and so on and so forth, right? GITA. So know what your target metrics are, and those are governed by what your target score in that section is. Right now, e-GMAT students create their personalized study plan, so they get all of this information ready-made for them through the personalized study planner. Right now, once you know what your target metrics are, figure out what your current metrics are. Right, so whichever platform you're using to basically do your cementing, to do your practice, right, make sure that platform provides you with that information. Then you dig deeper to identify those hidden weaknesses, fix those weaknesses by putting in the right kind of reinforcement, and then you build your stamina. Once you do that, there is no question whether you will hit that top score or not, your target verbal score or not. Okay. Now, this is the mapping. If you want, you can take a screenshot of this. 40% hard accuracy translates to 50th percentile ability. 55% hard accuracy translates to 70th percentile ability. 65% to 87th percentile. 70% to 90th percentile. 75% to 95th percentile. Okay, which is where it's very important to know what is the overall goal that you have for that particular section. You trace that back to what is your target accuracy for hard questions. Okay, so take a screenshot of this one. Now, how do you figure out your hidden weaknesses? You do that by tracking specific question types. What do I mean by that? For RC, for example, you need to be tracking how am I doing in main point questions overall, in inference questions overall, in detail oriented questions overall, right? When it comes to CR, you need to be looking at assumption family, inference family, boldface family, right? In RC, you have another layer of complexity, which is that what kind of passages, right? Maybe you are able to answer main point and inference questions very well in humanities type passages, right? But you get stuck with inference questions when it comes to economics or business type passages. So you need to add that additional layer. But overall, when you think about it, for RC, it's not enough to just say that I'm at 50% accuracy in her last hard questions. You have to drill it down to that next layer, wherein for biosciences, I'm here, right? For economics passages, I'm here. For humanities passages, I'm here. By the way, for main point questions, this is where I'm at, right? So you need to have that level of drilling down. Now, again, for e-GMAT students, all of that information is provided in the skill data in Scholaranium, so they can drill down all of that. So within one look of that particular skill data, we can identify where the gaps lie. Okay, then you identify which sub-concepts you're having problems with, which ones are below the target level. So remember, we set target metrics. Now you know where you're not meeting those target metrics. Now you actually focus on those weak areas, maybe go back into the course, maybe practice some medium files, then move on to hard files, and then hone in your skill. Okay, so that's the overall architecture of fixing your hidden weaknesses. Okay, and then for building your stamina, because one thing is that you have fixed that weakness, right? That set of weaknesses. Then you have to build your stamina, which is what is test readiness, right? You have to create practice tests that mirror this new reality, right? And what do you do there? You do 11 CR questions, medium hard combination, all in one shot, okay? Then you immediately follow those up with 4 RC passages, again, a combination of medium and hard. Now, if you were in the habit of doing cementing phase, which is stage 2 in the e-GMAT course architecture, you would in a way already be implementing this in a much more intensive manner. How? Our cementing quizzes contain 10 hard CR questions. So here, in order to build your stamina, we are telling you to do 11 medium and hard combination. But because you will have already gone through the cementing phase, your stamina would already be built to that particular level because you're doing 10 hard CR questions back to back in 3 consecutive CR hard quizzes. That's when e-GMAT students pass the cementing stage. Likewise, for RC, you have in every cementing quiz, there are at least 3 RC passages. Sometimes there are 4 RC passages also, right? Which is why a lot of students have already built that level of rigor that is required for them to actually breeze through this unexpected reality or this new reality, okay? But for those of you who haven't gone through that, this essentially creating a practice set which essentially takes you from 11 CR questions back to back to 4 RC passages back to back. This should become your sectional mock for verbal, okay? And then time yourself under test conditions. That's very, very important because when you're building your stamina, you absolutely have to work on your timing strategies, right? You need to have that timing map, and timing map becomes even more important for RC because you have to really sustain that level of focus throughout these 4 RC passages. Okay, and we'll talk about how is it that you go from one topic to another without really breaking your focus. Okay, so bottom line is, as I've said earlier, GMAT score, the end GMAT score that you see, that reflects your ability, not the question order. We may find question order to be an easy scapegoat, but till the time you don't get to the root cause of it, you will not be able to fix the problem that you have. Okay, so in order to make sure that nothing throws you off in the exam environment, make sure that you have strong fundamentals so that you can actually prepare for any kind of pattern that is thrown at you. Make sure that you build skills. Do not go into pattern recognition, pattern matching. If I do this, then I can apply this trick. Tricks don't work. Okay, GMAT is a test of ability, not a test of tricks and tips. Okay, lastly, by doing appropriate test readiness in the right manner, tracking the right metrics, you will be ready to tackle everything that is thrown your way. Okay, now let's come to RC. What is it that we should be focusing on RC? Because we are talking about back-to-back RC, right? Now we could basically translate the same thing into CR as well, because after all, you'll be solving 5 CR questions back-to-back, but that's not as intense an operation as answering 4 RCs appear to be. The main thing for RC, regardless of what topic it is, you need to have thorough comprehension of the passage. Own the data set is something that we coined for data insights, but frankly, owning the data set, owning the passage, if I just were to translate that into RC, you need to be completely immersed in the passage. You need to completely own the passage when you are dealing with that particular RC passage. And there are several techniques to do that. I'm going to talk about one of those techniques in this session, okay? And so for that, what I want you to do is I'm going to give you an RC passage and I'm going to give you 6 minutes to read that passage, ample amount of time, okay? I want you to read that passage, then I'm going to give you a set of questions, okay? I want you to answer those questions. And then and those are very different RC type. Those are not your typical RC questions. These are questions that I call as comprehension checkpoint questions, okay? And then I'm going to give you the actual RC questions for this particular passage, okay? So let's get right into this. I hope you're all ready to read this RC passage. So just compose yourself, 10 seconds, just take a deep breath and get going with this passage. I'm going to start the timer and I'm going to turn my video off in the meanwhile. All right. So we are back. 6 minutes are over. Now I'm going to give you this set of three different sets. I want you to tell me and type in the chat box, and I won't give you feedback right now. That'll be done towards the end. So write down are all. So which statements are true and which statements are false. You can just say true, true, false, true, false, true, something like that, right? So just type that in the chat box. I'll give you about 30 seconds. All right, let me go to the second set now. Here is set number 2, another 30 seconds. Read this and again type set 2, true, false, true, 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 false, all true, whatever the case may be. Okay, so for set 2, write down set 2 and then your response. Okay, I'm going to move on to the last set here. Ignore sentence number 2 here. Okay, let me see if I can mark that up over here. Yeah, so ignore this one. Okay, this may be a bit confusing. So you really have 4 sentences here. Again, I'll give you 30 seconds. All right, we are done with this now. And let me just go forward while we are in the spirit of the questions. We will start answering the next set of questions, the actual set of questions. So yeah, so you guys can just put in your responses for set number 3 as well. And here is question number 1. I'm going to give you a minute for this question. Actually, I'm going to give you 30 seconds for this question, not even a minute. Okay, type in your answers. Write down question number 1 and then what choice. I'm ending up giving you more time just because there is this lag in the delivery of the session. That's an artifact of YouTube live sessions. So I'm yet to see any responses here. So I see Sid's response. Sid and Amit are the only 2 people who are responding. And by the way, both of you are doing well. So Sid thinks, yeah, choice A is the correct answer. All right, I'm going to go on to next question. This one, I'm going to give you a minute. Yeah. Okay. Amit, I'm not seeing your responses here. Sid has given responses for both the questions. Let's a minute is up, so let's move on to our next question. This one again, I'm going to give you 45 seconds. Okay, I'm going to move on. 45 seconds are up, and I don't see any responses. Okay, Amit has given a response here. Good. All right, let's move on to the next question. This is question number 4. Oh, Amit gave the response for question 2. Okay. So, question number 4. We are done with question number 4. I'm going to move on to question number 5. There you go. Yes, Amit, there is a lag. That's the nature of question number 4. Okay, I'm going to move to question number 6. This is the last one here. All right, we are done with these questions. So, how was this passage? And I will wait for your responses over here. How was this passage? Okay. Yes, I'm waiting for your responses here. How was this passage? It's very hard for me to not interact with you guys over here while I'm doing this session. It just seems as if I'm talking to a wall here. So, for those of you who read the passage, how did you feel the passage was? Was it difficult? What was your level of understanding of the passage? Did you feel confident, or did you feel that you needed more time, or you were just confused? How was it? And thank you, Sid and Amit, for answering the questions. That gave me solid understanding of how most of you would be performing. Okay, would have performed better if I had the passage side by side. Took me less than 6 minutes to get the gist, so that extra time could have been put into answering questions. Now, there is a reason why I didn't show you the passage. I know in the actual test environment, you would be seeing the passage on the side, but none of these questions actually required you to go back to the passage. So, again, I'm giving you a little bit of an unusual experience of RC. But the whole point of that is what I want to drive home over here is the level of comprehension that you should have if you are spending that amount of time upfront on the passage. You shouldn't really have to go back to the passage to actually extract the information or to understand what was the passage saying in the first place. None of these questions actually are a detail detail level question that requires you to refer to the passage, and that's by design, because I want to make sure that you all understand that point. Okay, so I'm going to share my screen again, and what I'm going to walk you through is the level of detail that you or the level of understanding that you need to have when you are reading an RC passage. And that level of understanding you can gauge based on the performance on comprehension checkpoint questions. Okay, there were three sets of questions, and I'm going to tell you the answers for those. Now, if you answered all those questions correctly, 100%, that's what your target should be for these comprehension checkpoint questions. 100% accuracy. If your accuracy is 100%, then that means your level of understanding of the passage was spot on. Okay, if your accuracy is less than that, then you have to figure out why is it that you were not able to answer those statements correctly. Now, why are comprehension checkpoint questions important? They are important because they govern how well you have understood the passage. Now, if you have understood the passage well, and if you still end up making mistakes in a particular question, then the most likely reason for making those mistakes is that you haven't really understood the question, or you weren't able to actually paraphrase the question in your own words or translate the question in your own words, or you didn't do sufficient analysis of the answer choices. So now, by virtue of splitting your passage understanding and your question answering mechanism, what we have done is we have actually given you a framework for building your error log in a much more cohesive manner, in a much more simplified manner, right? Now, comprehension checkpoint questions are a very integral part of e-GMAT RC course. Okay, in every application file, you're going to see comprehension checkpoint questions. So that is going to, so those, and they are created so that you can do this level of analysis on your own without really having a tutor sit right next to you to figure out, to help you understand why is it that you have faltered. Okay, so now I'm going to share the screen back so that we can go through these questions once again, and I'm going to give you the answers to the comprehension checkpoint questions, and then we will go into the reading strategies, or what is it that one. So I've already given you two tips for acing RC. One is that you need to do a metric for RC. That is the first one is that you really need to master comprehension checkpoint questions, utilize comprehension checkpoint questions to determine your level of understanding of the passage. Now, for this one, all the, so let's go back over here. For the first set, all of these statements are true. So Amit was correct. Sid actually made a mistake for the first particular, for the first sentence wherein they marked it as false. All these statements are true. The passage actually talks about two different views of how schools should use the technology. One is explained by Johnson, the other one is explained by Anderson and the proponents of Anderson, the PIT technology. Okay, 2 and 3 are absolutely true statements. Set number 2, the first statement is true. The remaining two statements are false. Both Sid and Amit were correct over here. Okay. Set number 3, we eliminated statement number 2. Now here, all of these statements are correct. and I didn't really get to see what Sid and Amit had listed out. Let me see if I can go back. Sid wasn't exactly correct over here. He said false, false, true, false. Again, all of these statements are true. Again, we ignored statement number 2 over here. Okay. And a very important thing, set number 3 governs all inference type of statements. Johnson doesn't completely reject the idea. So what we'll do is we'll come back to this set after we have talked about the entire passage. Now, the thing with RC is for every RC passage, especially when you see back, regardless of whether you see back to back or not, for every RC passage, your goal should be to completely immerse yourself in the passage. Whenever you're solving an RC passage, that passage should mean the world to you during those 6 to 8 minutes. Nothing else in the world should matter. Nothing else exists in the world. It's just you and the author of that passage. Okay. Why am I saying the author of that passage? Because you have to understand, you have to follow the author through the entire meandering of the passage, right? As you meander through the passage, you have to see, where is the author going? Is the author going in the same direction as what he said earlier? Is he taking a U-turn? Is he talking about 3 different things? Is he going on a fork? So on and so forth, right? You have to follow the author like a hawk there, right? And that's when you essentially, by immersing yourself in the passage, by saying that this passage means everything to me, what you're doing is you are assimilating yourself in the passage. And when you do that, what you end up doing is you actually illuminate the path through the passage. And again, you may think that I'm talking in very vivid terms, but I'm going to show you what I mean. Okay. Now, technology, all of you have read the passage. Technology, pedagogy, learning outcomes. These are the 3 main terms or themes that are being talked about in this passage, right? Now, how did I figure out that these are the 3 terms? I read the first part of the passage, right? And that's what your goal should be. When you're reading the first part of the passage, and I'm not necessarily saying first line of the passage or first paragraph of the passage, I'm saying you have to read a certain part of the passage, okay, so that you can understand what are the various themes over here, okay. Emily Johnson's investigation into impact of adoption of digital learning platforms, okay, at certain school district provides decisive insights, provides really amazing insights into an ongoing debate. Okay, there is this debate in educational theory, the relative roles of technological innovation versus educational strategy. So over here, I understood that, okay, there is some kind of debate that's going on. There is this investigation that has been done, and then there's this thing about technology innovation, right? So from this part of the passage, I know that technology adoption in education, that seems to be one of the themes, that seems to be theme of thematic aspect of this passage, right? So from the first paragraph, I've only gotten one theme, right? Now I read next. Johnson argues that the inherent characteristics of digital learning tools. So again, I already have technology as my theme. Now, when I'm reading these 6 words together, inherent characteristics of digital learning tools, what I'm saying is, so argues that technology, right? So remember, now what I'm doing is the theme that I have associated, the theme that I inferred from that first paragraph, I'm now implementing that theme over here. I'm replacing those words or those phrases that relate to the theme. Okay, so Johnson argues that technology implementation profoundly influenced teaching methodologies and student engagement. Okay, teaching methodologies has come into picture, student engagement also has come into picture, so I hold on to that. So that is something that I register, that I make in that I note down in my notes. Okay. More specifically, she suggests that technology can be a crucial factor in shaping educational practices, right? So now, again, technology comes back. So as you are reading the passage, and I'm not going to read the whole thing because you guys have already read it, what needs to happen is these themes need to come out, okay? And that's what I'm talking about as illumination, okay? Teaching educational strategy, teaching methodologies, educational practices, pedagogical choices, so on and so forth. So now you see that whatever you read in the first paragraph and then in the second paragraph, you actually got to the next theme over here, which is, related to education or pedagogy or teaching methodologies. You can use any of these terms. And now you see how that single theme is actually being repeated throughout the passage. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. 13 instances of that. The last one, obviously, learning outcomes, results. And you see that learning outcomes have been presented in multiple various ways. So when you are immersed in the passage, what ends up happening is that these themes come out, and because you are immersed in the passage, because you have applied all those reading strategies to understand all the essence of the passage, to go deep into the passage, all of these themes then come out, and that's what illuminates your passage, and that's what then helps you summarize the entire passage. Okay, and that is another technique that I want you to assimilate, so that whatever passage you see, you know that there are those themes that will come out, and that's when you are able to actually extract the entire essence of the passage. Okay, now let's come to the questions over here. Okay, let's look at the question number 1 over here, and I've already noted down what Amit and Sid's responses were, wherever I got those responses. So primary purpose of the passage is, now this is, again, you don't, for any primary purpose question, if you feel the need to go back and refer to the passage, that is evidence that, or that's a symptom of you not having proper comprehension. So here you have second symptom of improper comprehension or insufficient comprehension. Symptom number 1 is that your accuracy for comprehension checkpoint questions is less than 100%. Symptom number 2 is that for primary purpose or main point questions, you have to refer back to the passage. That this question should not need any reference back to the passage. Okay, now choice E over here is the correct answer. Challenge and establish theoretical framework by demonstrating how technology and pedagogy can be mutually reinforcing rather than hierarchical. Why are we saying rather than hierarchical? Because the author supports Johnson's view, right? And the author is actually against Anderson's view, or the PIT view. According to PIT, you have to keep teaching methodologies up front, and then you basically think about what technology to apply, which is similar to hierarchical. Now, this is where you have to then do that translation of what you infer from the passage and what the answer choice is saying. So that is also a skill, which is why if you have answered 100% in comprehension checkpoint questions and you still made a mistake over here, then the most likely reason is not that you have improper comprehension. The most likely reason is that the way you are processing these answer choices, you're not doing enough. Okay, and this kind of understanding is very important for your error log. Got it? Now, challenge and establish theoretical framework. Established is the PIT framework by demonstrating how technology and pedagogy can be mutually enforcing. Now, this is what the author is doing by utilizing what Johnson is talking about, by Johnson's explanation of how technology should be integrated in the academia. That is how she is proposing that. Okay. Now, choice A was selected by Sid. Advocate for a methodical integration of technological tools. That is absolutely fine, with educational frameworks to maximize learning outcomes. That is right. That is one of the aspects that the author is doing. Okay, but this choice does not capture the critique aspect of it, which is why this choice is wrong, because the critique aspect is a very important aspect, and that's what is missing. Okay, so Sid, whenever you are selecting a main point question, main point answer choice, make sure that it encompasses the entire passage, not just part of the passage. Okay, now choice C is also one of the close answer choices. Why? Because this choice talks about critique. Okay, so it definitely talks about critique, but it falls short when it comes to proposing. So while critique part is good, proposing part is not all is not does not capture the the entire essence of the passage. Here, the author is not just proposing, the author is actually proving. Okay, when you're just proposing, you're just saying, okay, consider doing this. When you're proving something, you're giving evidence of why is it that you're giving support of your proposal. So the last paragraph over here, wherein Johnson presents the empirical view as well as an actual case study, that is where they are demonstrating this particular alternative methodology, which is why choice C is not correct. Okay, so again, choice C captures a certain aspect, but it doesn't capture another very important aspect. It just touches upon it and then it leaves. Okay, so that's a very important learning. For any main point question, you have to go deep into it. You have to make sure that the entire essence of the passage is covered. Okay, now let's come to question number 2 over here. This question was answered correctly by both Sid and Amit. And again, unfortunately, I don't have any other responses. That's the reason why I'm just saying Sid and Amit's names. Based on the arguments presented in the passage, which of the following best characterizes the fundamental point of divergence between Johnson's perspective and Anderson's theoretical framework? Okay. Now, again, this is a very loaded question, and that is another aspect of RC passages that RC questions that you have to simplify the question. Okay, the author could have simply, or the test maker could have simply said, what is the point? Why do Johnson's perspective and Anderson's perspective not align? Okay, what is the difference between the two, right? The correct answer over here is choice C. Again, this answer choice also has a lot of translation built into it. Johnson sees a bidirectional relationship. What does that mean? Non-hierarchical, okay, between technology and pedagogy, while Anderson advocates for a unidirectional influence from pedagogy to technology, hierarchical. Okay, so think about it. Unidirectional influence here, hierarchical here, saying the same thing. First, you consider the pedagogy, then you think about technology, what technology can actually communicate that. So multiple ways of expressing the same idea. Another thing that you should be mindful of when you're practicing RC, you should know that for expressing a single idea, there can be multitude of ways. Okay, and that is something which you will gain from practice as you are practicing from the right sources of information. Okay, so choice C is the correct answer over here. Choice A sometimes can also be a very close answer choice. Why? Because, it basically, Johnson prioritizes technological innovation over pedagogical consistency. This part is wrong because Johnson talks about balance. They don't talk about, prioritizing one over the other. The whole premise of Johnson's take on how technological innovation should be integrated with education is balance. Okay, so which is why prioritizing is incorrect. Now, some people, they may think that, okay, Johnson is against Anderson, and while Anderson's point has been expressed correctly, so Johnson's thing should be opposite of that, and that's where they may get enticed by choice A, especially because choice A is the first choice that they read. But again, that's where solid comprehension is important. And again, you didn't really need to go and see the passage to answer this question. Okay. Question number 3, let me look at your answers. Choice A is the correct answer over here. Based on the information in the passage, which of the following statements as a conclusion, okay, of a hypothetical educational study would Johnson most criticize? So essentially, what would Johnson be most against? Okay, again, translation, simplifying what this question statement is saying, that's very, very important. Okay, and if you fail to do that, then obviously you will not be able to select the correct answer. So essentially, over here, you have to see what would Johnson most disagree with. Okay, it is the digital tools that determine the effectiveness of teaching methods rather than teaching methods influencing the use of digital tools. Okay, now again, somebody who selected choice A in question number 2 is also likely to select choice A in this particular question, because these two choices are along the same lines. But again, over here, if you've understood that balance is what Johnson is going for, okay, and this is the aspect that is not balanced at all, that is what Johnson would criticize. So again, you didn't really need to go back to the passage. Whatever understanding you had of the passage, that is the understanding that you're taking further. Okay. Next one. Over here, I think let's look at what other answer choices. Um, all the other answer choices, if you think about, would be something that Johnson would agree with. Success of educational technology is a result of careful balance between technology and pedagogy. Okay, student improvements are achieved through combined impact. Again, balance. So again, Johnson would not criticize this. Significant advancements in education have come from integrating. So again, balance. When the digital tools can transform classrooms, experienced teachers can adapt these tools to enhance their instructional strategies. Now, for this one, you may need to go back to the passage and just look at where in a specific Maplewood district example was this covered. But again, choice A is so vehemently wrong, is right, from the standpoint of Johnson would never say that. That's why choice A is the correct answer choice, and which is why I didn't show you the passage, because I knew you didn't really need that to answer this question. Again, solid comprehension is going to get you to the correct answer right away within 30 seconds. All right. This one over here, choice B is the correct answer. So let's look at this. The information in the passage suggests that Johnson believes that which of the following would be true if PIT had not gained widespread acceptance. Okay. Now, what the question over here is saying is that if PIT had not gained widespread acceptance, now PIT is the prevailing principle there, right? Then what would have happened? Schools would be more likely to adopt digital learnings without considering existing pedagogical frameworks. Absolutely not. Again, without considering, balance is gone off. Okay. Johnson is all for balance. Again, you can see how the balance theme is coming from question number three, from 2 to 3 to 4. Okay. Same balance theme. And that is something which is very typical of RC passages. There isn't too much going on in the passage when you drill it down to its nitty gritty, when you actually drill the entire thing down. Okay. And that is the pulse of the passage that you have to get to. That's the level of understanding that you need to get to. You need to have that confidence. I don't really need to see the passage. Okay. Now, again, for detailed questions, you may have to go back and look at the passage. But for all the other kinds of questions, you should not have to look at the passage. That is a mantra. That is the mantra that I would want you guys to follow. Once you follow that, if you know that that is your target, then you will automatically read the passage in the manner that you are intended to read that passage. Got it? All right. So choice A is wrong. Let's look at choice B. There would be greater adoption of newer pedagogical methodologies that leverage the strengths of digital learning platforms that in turn would potentially deliver more improved learning outcomes. This is all about balance over here. Greater adoption of pedagogical methodology, okay, that leverage strengths of digital learning platforms, right? So not the existing pedagogical methodologies, but these new methodologies which would leverage technology, and then that's going to result in better outcomes. Okay, and all the other answer choices are there. Okay, this one, question number 5. The correct answer over here is choice D, instilling fear of negative outcomes. Now, here, advocates of PIT. Now, remember, so if you have understood the passage and if you've taken appropriate notes, what you will realize is that, again, you can refer back to the passage, but here also you don't need to look at the passage if you have really created that passage map in an effective manner, right? Your notes in an effective manner. And that's where, after the author introduces the PIT theory, PIT, what they talk about is that a lot of the proponents of this theory actually misrepresent, and they basically create that sense of fear. So had you translated that aspect, and we can go back to the passage so that you can see, let's go back to, sorry about that. Let's see, am I still sharing? Just sharing my screen here, PowerPoint slideshow. Here you go. So here, the advocates of this paradigm gain traction by misrepresenting innovation, by propagating that left to its elements, uncontrolled changes in learning pedagogy would happen that would have detrimental impact on educational outcomes. So you can see that there is that sense of fear that has been instilled, and that is the correct answer over here. Okay, choice number D. Okay. Last question over here. Let's look at this. Which of the following statements about Johnson's study of digital learning platforms can be inferred from the passage? Again, choice B is the correct answer over here. Johnson's primary motivation for study was to discredit? Absolutely not. Johnson's study implies that integration of technology should be analyzed within the scope of existing pedagogical methods and technological capabilities. Again, synergies between the two. That is exactly what Johnson recommended. And then examine the impact of digital learning platforms in terms of their effects on teaching techniques, student participation. Student participation, yes, but overall classroom management, that's something that Johnson has not talked about. Now, for this, you may want to go back and refer to the passage and see, was there anything about overall classroom management? And frankly, when you're taking notes, when you're reading the passage the right way the first time, you will have automatically registered in your memory. And because if you're taking notes as well, that there was nothing about classroom management. So another evidence that you don't necessarily need to go back to the passage if you have read the passage the right way. Johnson concluded that the integration of digital learning platforms was equally beneficial. Well, there was no comparison or no equitability of benefit for teachers versus students, right? So this one is also not correct. Johnson's analysis of digital learning platforms is limited to the specific study? Absolutely not. Johnson's analysis in the last paragraph talks about both the aspects, the empirical as well as the actual case study. So this is absolutely wrong. Again, we didn't really need to go back to the passage. And that's the whole reason why I gave you that much amount of time to actually solve this passage, because that is the level of detail. In order to get to this level of detail, that you don't really necessarily need to go back to the passage. You have to spend that much amount of time on the passage so that you extract everything from it, so that you create that passage map, and so that you have solid control over the passage. Now, imagine if you have this level of control on the passage, is there any scenario that any passage can throw you off? Absolutely not. Okay. And which is why, if you are building your ability the right way, okay, and building your ability requires you to go through the fundamentals, require you to build your reading strategies and reading comprehension skills in that manner. Understand what your metrics are, very very important, and then track those metrics so that you know that here is where I'm at, right? And this, my metric, my last 20 hard questions translates to this ability, right? Do deep dive into what skill areas you are having problems with, fix those skill areas, and then do your test readiness in the test environment. If you are doing that, the GMAT exam can throw anything at you and you will not have a problem. So, when you are preparing for RC, make sure you utilize comprehension checkpoint questions. If your accuracy in those comprehension checkpoint questions is 100%, okay, then you know that your comprehension of the passage is good. If it is less than 100%, then you need to go back and reread the passage to see what exactly did you not understand. Okay, then you move on to answering these questions. If you're not able to answer any question correctly, well and good, understand why that is the case. Again, if your accuracy was 100% for comprehension checkpoint questions, then the most likely reason is either you didn't translate the question statement or you didn't translate the answer choices. Okay. Third thing that I would say is, if you have to watch when you're practicing RC, watch whether you have to keep going back to the passage. If you see yourself going back to the passage, then that's a very very solid indication that you have not comprehended the passage the right way. Okay, if you do all of this, I am 200% confident any back to back RC thrown at you, you will breeze through it. Okay. So with this, we come to the end of this session. I can take some questions right now if you have any questions. And for the presentation, I will share the link of the presentation with GMAT Club, and then they will share that with you. Okay. So you've been a wonderful audience, and Sid and Amit, thank you for your participation here. I wish others had also given their answers. That way I would have been able to give you more insights. We would have been able to discuss more answer choices. But would love to take any questions that you may have, any doubts. I hope that the session has eased your anxiety a bit with regards to verbal section. Let me know which strategy worked for you, which strategy you are unclear about, and we're there on GMAT Club, and we can definitely answer your questions. If you are on the e-GMAT platform, reach out to us. You can connect with me on LinkedIn as well. So Amit, you face challenges with the stated idea and inference questions. Again, comprehension. Okay, Amit, I want you to utilize your accuracy for the first two sets was good. For the last set was not as good. Test conditions. See, if you're practicing the right way, if you're building your ability the right way, then in test conditions also you will be able to do that. The main thing that you have to do is when you're reading the passage, right, you have to forget everything and you have to get to that level. It should be a very natural consequence for you to read the passage in that manner. And believe me, RC was never my strong suit. Okay, sentence correction was definitely my strong suit. RC was not. But I have trained myself to basically overcome that challenge of RC. Okay, and now any passage that I see, I embrace it. And frankly, this is a life skill. When you are doing your MBA, you will be going through case studies, some of which you may not like, right? You may not be interested in those topics. How is it that you will immerse yourself in those kinds of case studies? That's a life skill. So preparing for the GMAT really teaches you those life skills. Okay, and the more effort you put, conscious effort you put right now for your GMAT prep, you will not only get the high target score that you have set for yourself, which is going to which is going to get you to the path to those top MBA schools and scholarships, right? Not only that, you will also actually prepare yourself to actually do well during your MBA curriculum as well as post your MBA curriculum. Okay, so it is not easy, but with the right kind of mindset, you can actually do it because you have all these techniques. Any other questions? Any other comments? If you like this session, please like this webinar, like the video. That way, this video can reach more and more GMAT aspirants such as yourself. And just write to me, as I said, connect with me on LinkedIn. That way, you guys can share your questions over there. All right. So once again, thank you so much. It was wonderful conducting this session, and thank you, GMAT Club, for inviting me over here. All right, I have another question. In practice tests, usually you get 2 short and 1 long passage. However, I got 3 long passages back to back with just a couple of CR in between. That's okay. See, long passage, short passage doesn't really matter, Amit. In my experience, actually, shorter passages are more dense, which means that they require more attention. Longer passages, because they are longer, there are more words to express the idea that the author wants to express, which is why those are a little bit more easier to essentially which is why it's more easy to handle those. Okay, so it doesn't really matter. The skills, the comprehension skills remain the same. Okay, Asim is saying, I have my GMAT coming on 24th. My current verbal is around 80th percentile. Any tips, please? Frankly, you have, first of all, your current verbal is 80th percentile. Where does that place you in terms of your overall target score? What's your target score? What is it that you are targeting in verbal? Do you want to go to 95th percentile, which means you have to get to 75% accuracy for hard questions? Or do you want to go to 90%, 90 percentile or 85th percentile? Okay, your accuracy targets would vary based on what percentile you are targeting. Okay, so Asim, if you're not an e-GMAT student, write to us. You're targeting around 85th percentile, which means that you need around 65% accuracy, right? So again, you have to then figure out where is it that you are fault, where is it that you're at right now. So the stuff that I discussed upfront in the webinar, those are the things that you have to do, which is you have to figure out what your CR and what your RC last 20 hard accuracy numbers are, okay? And then you have to drill down to figuring out which sub concepts you're having problems with, okay? So Asim, if you are so I would suggest that you write to our support team at support@e-gmat.com so that they can help you out with this kind of assessment. So if you take, so if you have stats that you can share with us, or if you take our Sigma-X mock test, we can look at that and we can come up with strategies for you, because you do have about 10 days, give or take, and you are in the last stages of your prep. I know that there's a student who went from 625 to 695, if my memory serves me right, in 14 in 10 days, I believe, right? But that was with a very hyper specific study plan. So write to our team so that they can help you out with that, and they can create a very, very hyper specific study plan, because you have such a small time gap. Okay. Thank you, Asim. I'm really glad that you liked the session. Do let me know what is it that resonated with you in the session. That would really be very good feedback for us. Du Viantran, I hope I haven't butchered your name. I apologize for that if I did. What is the average time to understand the passage? 100%. This varies from person to person. It varies from the stage of your prep you are in also. So your stage of prep also governs this. So if you are starting off, and let's say if your current percentile, your current ability is less than 50 percentile, you may take 14 minutes to understand the passage 100%. Okay. But the goal over here is, regardless of where you're at, your goal has to be to understand the passage 100%. Without that, you should not move forward. Because if you start to move forward without that 100% understanding, without that solid grasp of the passage, then you are invariably going ahead with that weakness to handle not only hard questions, but hard questions in that extensive test environment. Okay, so you're doing yourself a lot more harm than good by going ahead with less than ideal RC comprehension. Okay, so I have seen students who go from 20 minutes on a passage to understand it 100% to 10 minutes to 8 minutes to 6 minutes. And you will see that progression as long as across, I would say, 10 passages. I'm not talking about answering hundreds of passages. You can do that across 10 passages if you have solid understanding of fundamentals. What does it mean to immerse myself? What does it mean to follow the author's view? What does that mean to understand the sentence structure? What does it mean to essentially look at the keywords and follow the direction of the author? If you understand all of that, and in the e-GMAT course, we're going to we teach you all of that. Okay, then with 10 passages, 10 application files, you can actually get from 20 minutes to 6 minutes. Okay. In your experience, is this an aberration, or what GMAT is doing now? No, this is not an aberration, right? It's another way of think about it. It's just a tweak in the order of questions. Why should that be an aberration? You know you have to answer RC. You know you have to answer CR, right? Would you consider in a case study, for example, you have such thick booklets of case studies, right? 20 pages long, 50 pages long, right? You are expected to read all that, right? So why in a test which is, which has these 20 questions, 21 questions, why is it an aberration to clump all the RC passages together? It's illogical to consider this to be an aberration, frankly speaking. At the end of the day, it's your skill that the GMAT is testing. Okay. All right, with that, we're going to end this session. Hope this was helpful for you. Hope this takes away the anxiety of that RC creates. And just write to us at support@e-gmat.com, or connect with me on LinkedIn. You can search for my name, Payal Tandon, and you will find me there. All right, bye-bye. Happy learning.